Welcome to another home Bible study. I call it a home Bible study because you have the opportunity there in your homes to study your Bible together. The first thing that I would like you to do is to go and pick up that book and open the book and get ready to study it with us. It would be impossible for us to have an adequate Bible study unless we really understand the importance of using your Bible, and I want you to do that. Our study tonight is going to be on worship, and I want you to take the first section of this study to really, well, I guess, take an honest approach to your worship. How do you worship? Are you healthy in your worship? Do you enjoy coming to church? Do you enjoy coming to Bible study? Do you enjoy practicing the Bible as God has given it to you? Or do you find worship a laborious task, a task in which, well, it's not too much fun because you have to put forth a lot of effort to do it? Well, I hope that by the time this Bible study is ended, that you will have a different view of worship. In my reading on worship, I try to read an awful lot in order to come to an agreement or an idea of what a lot of people say about worship. In order to share those ideas with you, I think it's important at this time. John R.W. Stott wrote a book called Christ the Controversialist. And in this book, this is what Dr. Stott writes. Christians believe that true worship is the highest, noblest activity of which man, by the grace of God, is capable. Now I believe, as John Stott does, it is the highest and noblest activity which you can be involved in. It's worship, and we'll get into the definition of what worship is. Basically, I'm saying whenever you come to church, whenever you are away from church, there in your home, on your job, or wherever you are, you find yourself in the attitude of worship. Boyce, James Montgomery Boyce, the theologian and pastor of a Presbyterian church, wrote about worship, and he says, two great sections of the church, the art of worship has been lost entirely. Let me read that again. Two great sections of the church, that is, the art of worship, has been lost entirely, and in its place has come that strange and foreign thing called the program. Now, being a black pastor, I would agree with James Montgomery Boyce. We have replaced worship with the program, our church liturgy. And we'll get into that in our study also. In front of you, you have an outline. And in that outline, you're going to have some fill-in sections there. And as we get into our study, I would hope that you would listen, pay very close to this Bible study so that you might fill it in. Now, look, let me say this. If this, looking at your television screen, is boring, well, then I challenge you to take the cassette tape out and turn on some mess tonight. You can watch things like 30-something, which you shouldn't be watching. You should watch a TV movie. You should watch a video that's X-rated, right? You see, this is very important because, Christian, you are not able to come to church the way that some of us are. You're handicapped to some degree. And I'm just not making this tape for one family. Right now in our church, there are a lot of people that have children that can't come out to Bible study. You're missing crucial studies for your Christian development. So the pastor thought that it's necessary to make tapes like this, and so that you will be able to study at home. I want you to be able to catch up. Yes, I do want you to feel uncomfortable about you not attending church. It's very important because it's my idea that when most of us do attend church, we attend for the program and not necessarily for the art of worship. Tozier asked in his book, The Pursuit of God, is the worship that we often see in churches really what God would have? Tozier goes on and asks, is it genuine worship? You see, now he's asking a very important question. Is that you see in your church genuine worship? Is it the kind of worship that God would have you involved in as an individual person? Boyce, from his books, Foundations of the Christian Faith, writes this: to glorify God is to acknowledge His worthship. We worship God just as we glorify God when we acknowledge His perfections. So worship is looking at God's worthship. And I believe that this is what we ought to, or the way that we ought to handle this subject of worship. Now, let's get into it. Worship. What does the word worship make you think of? Well, to some of us, when we think of the word worship, we think of robed priests or robed preachers. Worship to some of us is just the preacher coming to church dressed up in his clergy garment, and some folks even think of incense burning in the corner of a church and candles burning. That's not necessarily worship. Some people think of worship as a chapel near the countryside with flowing greens flowing and trees and birds singing in the trees. Some people might say that worship, Pastor John, is none of the above. Well, that's very, very true. But worship, in essence, is a response to God. Worship is a response to God. Now, what I mean by response to God, I think I owe you a definition. Worship is our active response to God, whereby we declare His worth. Worship is your and my active response to God, whereby we declare His worth. Now, you're supposed to be writing this down in your outline. As I give this lecture, I'm giving it so that you might know what worship is. Okay, answer me. What is worship? I've just told you. You should have been writing. It is our, that's personal, active response. Okay, and active is the key. Worship is not passive, but rather it is our active response to God, whereby we do something. We declare His worth. Okay, worship is not